Okay, everybody, before I throw you in the deep end here on this animation course, I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of workflow within Pencil 2D. Workflow is just what I have found to be the easiest way to use the program, to use it quickly, and to get some really good results for the least amount of time. You may think I'm trying to skimp here and put together just a horrible animation, but really it's about knowing how to use the program well. So the first thing I want to cover is how to put a plan together. So down here we've got our default bitmap layer. I'm going to change this to plan. So for your first assignment, you're going to do a bouncing ball. And if I were to plan out the bouncing ball here, I would grab this lovely pink color here. And then I would go ahead and plan out what the animation is going to look like. So I may want to do a horizon line, so the ball feels like it exists somewhere. I'll draw the highest point of the ball, the lowest point of the ball, and then any in-between frames or breakdowns that I feel would help. So knowing that gravity is going to play a role, we're probably going to have more balls, more frames up here towards the top than we will at the bottom. And then for this bottom one, we probably want to have one that is squished out really far like that, showing the impact of it hitting the ground. So now when I go back and animate this, I have a solid plan. I will create a new layer. Okay, and then we'll call this one ball. Okay, so then on this layer, we would actually go in, draw the ball, one ball per frame. And I recommend working on 2s or 4s. So let's see if we start. Actually, before we get to that, let's cover one other thing. There are two ways to color in your animations. One is by hand and the other is using the bucket tool. If you do it by hand, I find you get a cleaner look and it's easier to edit things later, but it does take more time because it requires multiple layers. So for example, I just created the ball layer. If I were coloring in by hand, I would use the brush and black. I would draw. Oops, I didn't change color. Let's try that again. All right, so there's my ball animation. We come down here. We'll go 4s just to make it go a little bit snappier here. We'll add a keyframe. Draw our next ball underneath here. And our next ball underneath that. Okay, so here I didn't connect the line. If you're using the bucket tool, that's a bad thing. Okay, so that would keep our bucket fill from overflowing. So if I'm doing it as a hand colored in format, this would be ball color. So then I would drag this layer underneath ball, and then I would use the paintbrush again to color in the ball. But this time I'm just scribbling in here, and you'll notice that it doesn't affect my lines. So this can be really nice. This is actually how I did Secret of Knowing the whole shebang, and it took a long time. The other option, if we back out here, is to stick to our ball color and use the bucket tool to fill it in. And if you use the brush and the bucket tool, those two work together really well. Oops, I did not connect my line there. There we go. So as you can see, there are advantages and disadvantages both directions here. All right, this is just asking me to say real quick. So this is ball test. And it's got an error, whatever. Okay. So then if we play this animation through, you can see it's starting to move. So that's kind of how workflow is. You want to put your plan together on a single layer. It'll always be on frame 1 because you want it to just persist in the background while you're doing other things. Another thing I want to point out here is once you color it in, it covers up your onion skin. So you can see this red shading here. That's the onion skin. And once you color it in, it hides that layer. So I recommend doing all your line work first and then come back and do all your color. So we can summarize workflow in just a few sentences. Plan everything out on a single frame, on a single layer. Create a new layer for each object. And don't fill it in with color until you are done with your line work. So that's kind of your basic workflow principles.